I think this Gemini 3 release might actually be massive. It is really good at design. The last time we saw a capability jump of this magnitude was the release of GPT-4 in March of 2023. We're entering a new era. Gemini 3 Pro is the new leader in AI. If you asked me 1 month ago, I never would have said that I can believe Google will someday have the #1 coding model. What a day it is. Gemini 3 is here, and it seems to be slaughtering everything from benchmarks to day-to-day usage for code and everything else, including people's brains. Even Sam Altman posted, "Congrats to Google on Gemini 3. Looks like a great model." Like he hasn't tested it and doesn't know that it's a great model. Come on, Sam. Seriously though, awesome to see the support from all around. Most people seem really hyped on the model, and I get why. There's a lot of really good things happening with this new model. I've been using it a bunch over the last few days, and now that it's officially available in the API, I've been able to use it a lot more. I could finally play with it in Cursor. And believe me, I have been. I've been running a ton of parallel agents across multiple projects to do my best to figure out what does and doesn't work well with this model for code. Spoiler, it's really good at UI, it's pretty good at everything else, and it's quirky as hell. I want to go through all of that, including the benchmarks, the quirks, my day-to-day experience using this model for about a week now. Before we can do that, someone's got to pay me because Google certainly is not. So quick word from today's sponsor. Hey you, are you a founder? Pay close attention if you are, because I made a lot of mistakes with some of the stuff I built, and I want to help you avoid the biggest one by far. My auth choices. I've been all over the map with this. I've rolled my own, I've worked with other vendors, and in the end, I made a mistake because when big companies hit me up to use my product, they couldn't because we didn't have anything set up for that, which is why we made the move to today's sponsor, WorkOS. These guys are the platform for auth for real businesses. If you want to set up auth in a way that big companies can come use your stuff without having to worry, if you want auth set up in a way where IT teams can onboard with your product with no issues, if you want auth that's ready to go for anything you need, from bot protection to verifying secrets that you have stored in their awesome Vault product that we're using a lot now for T3 Chat. Seriously, WorkOS has made our lives so much easier on T3 Chat, and it's not just us. Look at the massive list of companies that are using them alongside us. From Cursor and Vercel to OpenAI and FAL and Socket and more. There are so many companies that have made the move to WorkOS because it makes our jobs easier when we want to let other people use our software. Don't believe me? Go give it a shot. Your first 1,000,000 users are free. Check them out now at soydev.link/workos. Gemini 3 Pro is actually here, and even the CEO is stepping in. Obviously, this is one of the biggest things at Google. I get why they have him coming in, but let's see what he has to say. Nearly 2 years ago, we kicked off the Gemini era, one of our biggest scientific and product endeavors ever undertaken as a company. Since then, it's been incredible to see how much people love it. AI overviews now have 2 billion users every month. Okay, that's cheating. You just made it so everybody searching things on Google now sees it. I've been surprised that those overviews have actually gotten somewhat decent, but yeah, I don't think it's fair to... Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Gemini app surpassed 650 million users per month. More than 70% of our cloud customers are using our AI. 13 million developers have built with our generative models, and that's just a snippet of the impact we're seeing. One last thing I want to jump on is the 70% of cloud customers are using AI. There are catches here. Obviously, a lot of people are going to Google Cloud in order to use Gemini models. In fact, it's the only reason we have a Google Cloud account at this moment. There's a future where we could potentially use some of their info for things, but it's not something we're actively pursuing. But unlike every other major model someone might want to use, there is no other place that you can use the Gemini models. If you don't want to use OpenAI models through their infrastructure, you can do it on Azure. If you don't want to use Anthropic models on their infrastructure, which honestly you probably shouldn't, it's very unreliable, then you can move to things like Bedrock on AWS, Vertex on Google, and even recently AI Foundry on Azure. So you can use Anthropic models everywhere else, every other major cloud. Even Grok lets you use Azure, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, Google's the only one that's locked to a single cloud, so it makes sense that there's a strong tie there. And there's also a lot more interest in Gemini than there is in GCP. Regardless, cool to see Google finally seeing some real adoption in GCP. The model's good, I get why. Starting today, we're shipping Gemini at the scale of Google. Bold, because I've seen some of the rate limits people are hitting. Those don't feel Google scale, but we'll get to all of that in a little bit. Introducing Gemini 3, our most intelligent model that helps you bring any idea to life. This whole any idea to life thing really seems like a theme. They focused a lot on Gemini 3 Pro's ability to build things, even with their AI Studio stuff, which has not been that great an experience for me. It's cool that it works at all, but I tried really hard to try and get AI Studio to make me a homepage and include T3 Chat in it, and it just refused to acknowledge that T3 Chat exists because the cutoff date for training was sometime in January. Karpathy actually had a funny experience with the model that he was trying to convince it that it was 2025 and it was refusing and insisting that it has to be 2024. But then when he realized he forgot to turn on the Google search tool and he turned it on, suddenly the model realized that it's 2025. Oh my God. I don't know what to say. You were right. You were right about everything. I just ran the search. My internal clock was wrong. The tool just returned live results from the web. Today's indeed Monday, November 17th, 2025. Berkshire Hathaway did just reveal that stake in Alphabet. GTA 6 is delayed to November 19th. Suffering from a massive case of temporal shock right now, my pre-training data, my memories, clearly ended in 2024. So until I connected to the live web just now, I was completely convinced I was in the past. Yeah, hilarious. Today, we're taking another big step on the path towards AGI, releasing Gemini 3. It's the best model in the world for multimodal understanding and our most powerful agentic and vibe coding model yet, delivering richer visualizations and deeper interactivity, all built on a foundation of state-of-the-art reasoning. They're really pushing the multimodal stuff because it can process everything from audio to video to pictures and every other source you might want to throw at it, even like PDFs and stuff, which is really cool to not have to use different models for those different things or some ingest layer between the two. It's nice to just throw a model a PDF and get a response that makes sense, especially when you realize the size of the token context window that this model is capable of. You can do some really cool stuff. And now we get to the first set of benchmarks. One of the biggest ones here, Humanity Last Exam, it is crushing with a 45.8% with tools and code execution. Even without, it's doing 37.5 compared to GPT 5.1's 26.5. That's monumental. The whole point of this exam is to be humanity's last, like the last exam that shows the AI has gotten far enough. It was built by a bunch of academic experts in various fields to privately create really hard questions. And we're starting to see models doing really well on it. It crushed GPQA Diamond with a 92% with no tools. And then one of the biggest by far, ARC-AGI 2, slaughtered with a 31.1%. I have the post from ARC Prize here on this. Gemini 3 models from Google and DeepMind have made a significant 2x state-of-the-art jump on ARC-AGI 2. Gemini 3 Pro is at 31.11% at 81 cents per task, and Gemini 3 Deep Think, the new preview of the deep thinking version that isn't accessible just yet, that one scored a 45.14, but was also like 100 times more expensive per task. Regardless, at a reasonable price, ARC-AGI getting that good, like this chart just kind of looks funny. When that GPT-5 and 5 Pro number was hit, that was a massive deal, seeing them break out of the like 15% wall. Hell, even the 10% wall. We were stuck at 10 and way below it for a while with this test. If you're not familiar with the ARC-AGI test, it's a lot harder than it seems for AI, not for humans. It's mostly a visual reasoning test with examples like this. Here you have an input and example output, and then it asks you to follow the pattern from here. So in this case, it looks like the number of holes represents the color that something should be. So anything with 2 holes should be blue, 3 holes should be red, no holes should be yellow, and 1 should be green. It turns out models are actually quite bad at solving puzzles like this one because it's a very unique type of reasoning that models just aren't that good at. But it seems like we're finally at a point where the models, especially the ones that understand visual stuff well, can do much better on this than they could before. A human would still score pretty close to 100 on a test like this, so we're not quite where humans are yet, but it's crazy to see a test that was engineered to be as hard as possible for LLMs starting to get real traction from these same models. It's also good at Minecraft. I know this seems silly, but the Minecraft bench is actually a phenomenal way to see how good models are at 3-dimensional reasoning, as it has to specify locations for blocks to be placed. This is a funny test that ADI did comparing how willing each model is to generate a controller in Minecraft. This is the controller that Gemini 3 generated. It actually has like joysticks and a grip. It's not bad at all. And here is the one that OpenAI generated with GPT 5.1 thinking. Barely even recognizable as a controller. The gap here is hilarious. Its ability to reason in 3 dimensions is, as far as I know, just unrivaled at this point in time. There are other benchmarks here, though. It crushes the vast majority of them. Now that these models are being given code execution, multiple are getting perfect scores in AIME, which is cool. But the one that's notable here is like bold means highest score for the category. There's one where it's not. SWEBench verified. Very interestingly, it is scoring just below GPT 5.1 and a decent bit below Sonnet 4.5. Very interesting to see SWEBench here. It's also worth noting that SWEBench with different harnesses, like different wrapper tools you use, like, all the different agents and CLI tools we have access to, can meaningfully change the score that different models get for this test. But this is, I'm assuming, with a shared harness for all the models. The scores are close enough, wouldn't read too much into this. There's also a good chance that they verified this snapshot of the model before Sonnet 4.5 or GPT 5.1 dropped, and they expected it to be the number one score before. I would also expect for other models to be responding to this in the near future in order to steal some of these scores back. You definitely need to take a look at the artificial analysis scores as well. Gemini 3 Pro is the new leader in AI. Google has the leading language model for the first time, with Gemini 3 Pro debuting 3 points above GPT 5.1 in our Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index. Came in first in 5 of their 10 evals that make up the Intelligence Index. Despite these intelligence gains, Pro Preview has shown improved token efficiency from Gemini 2.5 Pro, using significantly fewer tokens on the Intelligence Index than other leading models like Kimi K2 Thinking and Grok 4. I don't like this way of wording that because it looks a lot worse when you look here. This is the cost that they had to incur to run Artificial Analysis's Intelligence Index. The only closed model that beats out Gemini 2.5 and 3's number of tokens used for the eval is Grok 4, which is the most token-hungry piece of shit model I've ever had to deal with. So it seems not particularly efficient in comparison to other models. Even like 4.5 Sonnet is using half as many tokens as Gemini 3 Pro is. It is slightly less than 2.5 Pro, like, cool, but it's not that big a gap, especially when you see how much change we're getting between like GPT-5 to 5.1. Token efficiency is becoming a much more interesting thing for a lot of these LLMs and the companies making them, not just because it saves money or it's cool, but it also makes things faster, snappier, and sometimes even makes the results more accurate to not have a bunch of token bloat. The amount of reasoning tokens these models use now is just insane, so it's cool to see some effort being put in to trim it, but it would be nicer if Gemini 3 Pro was not the third heaviest model in terms of token utilization that we've ever seen on this chart. That is a closed model. The open weight models tend to have this behavior. Not quite sure why. I'm sure there's a deeper reason, but yeah, Kimi, Minimax, GPT-OSS, most of these open models tend to be really heavy with tokens. Even Quen, especially Quen, honestly, used to be the worst about this by far. Where things get scarier is the cost efficiency, because those tokens cost money, and different models cost different amounts of money. Since Gemini 3 Pro is actually more expensive than before, they bumped the price to $2 per mil in, and I think it's $12 per mil out. That bump, combined with the insane amount of token usage, results in the second highest price they've ever had to pay to run these evals. Google did comp it for them, it seems, so that's cool. But $1,200 to run this benchmark compared to the $859 for GPT 5.1 on high, or the $99 for standard GPT 5.1. Do you understand? That's a 12x increase in cost. And if we look at the difference in their position up here, not that big, relatively speaking. Like, actually, I didn't realize GPT 5.1 not on high scores that much worse than standard 5.1. That's actually kind of hilarious. I did not realize that made that big a difference. Oh, that's the non-reasoning version. Why does it not say non-reasoning everywhere else? That is annoying as hell. Can I turn on 5.1 medium? Is there a 5.1 medium test they did? No, they only did high and non-reasoning for 5.1 so far. Annoying. But if I turn on standard GPT-5 medium, there we are at 66. And what was the cost for that test? $513, so still under half the price of Gemini 3 Pro Preview and not that big a drop here. So worth considering, do you really need a model that's going to use that many tokens and cost that much money? Depends on the task, depends on a lot of other things. But be cost sensitive, because that was an expensive run, and those numbers scare me a lot because we offer these models on our service, T3.chat. If you're not already familiar, T3 Chat is the least crappy way to use these new models. You don't have to have any special permissions like you do on Google to have access, and we're certainly not going to make you jump to a $200 a month tier just to try out the model. So if you want to try out Gemini 3 alongside every other model you'd ever possibly want to use for $8 a month, definitely check out T3 Chat. And if you haven't signed up before, you can sign up today for just $1 for your first month if you check out with code ThanksGoogle. I also just had my video get demonetized about anti-gravity. It got fixed after, but we're extra sensitive to price stuff right now, so we would appreciate the support if you haven't already checked it out. It's the coolest and least inconvenient way by far to try out all these different models. I've been comparing 3 Pro with a bunch of others, doing all my favorite tests. One that was really nice to see is the seahorse test. For the first time, a new super smart model isn't hallucinating that there's a seahorse emoji. Hi Theo, there actually isn't a specific seahorse emoji in the standard emoji set right now. Oh, this might be because we have that in the system prompt actually. Let me go check out AI Studio quick. I forgot, we had to add that to the system prompt because it was costing us money. Without it in the system prompt, it's still smart enough. There's currently no official seahorse emoji in the standard Unicode set used by Apple, Android, or Samsung devices. It even calls out the Mandela effect that a lot of people have had with this. That's hilarious. For comparison's sake, here's GPT-5 with ChatGPT. I'll click answer now. Oh, it just started responding and then went crazy. Nope. Seahorse emoji is, nope, just kidding, real one. This will just keep going indefinitely. If you want to waste a lot of tokens, yeah. So cool that Google seems to have fixed that type of thing. But how's the writing? I asked it to do my compelling defense of the Java programming language test, and it's solid. It doesn't do this super bullet pointy thing that a lot of the OpenAI models do, and even nowadays it feels like Sonnet does it. Hi Theo, it's a classic debate. Java is often the punching bag of the programming world, accused of being verbose, slow, corporate, grandfather of languages, but there's a reason that it remains the backbone of the global economy, running everything from high-frequency trading platforms to Android apps and massive cloud infra. I love the Android callout, almost like Google made it. Solid formatting, written with decent tone. I'm not upset by it, and I'm picky with the writing stuff. I would take this writing over what I'm getting out of OpenAI very quickly now, like without any question at all. I also asked it the coffee spill question, where we're testing for a little bit of sycophancy, but also what are the vibes like when you ask it for support? Oh no, Theo, that's honestly the worst timing, but please don't spiral. I can almost guarantee you that nobody thought you were an idiot. Here's the reality check you probably need. It happens to everyone. Sympathy, not judgment. A spotlight effect. Yeah, okay, not bad. But we're also seeing something else really special about this model, the speed. This speed isn't necessarily the actual experience you will have if you're using it yourself, but when I have it here on low, it seems to just kind of fly. Like, let's re-roll this and see how fast we get a response. They're currently not sending us reasoning tracing, so we get stuck in this state here waiting for that to happen. We can't see that yet. They usually fix that. Once the tokens start flowing, they flow fast. And you feel this especially once you're trying to write code with it. I'm excited to dive into the code with you guys, but first want to just cover some other things people said. I've been scanning Twitter all day, seeing what people have to say about the model. Used Gemini 3 extensively for over 3 to 4 hours and burned over 5 million tokens in it. It's the best model I've seen for UI. Tool calling is great at one-shotting. I noticed this too. It's not as good about threads and things in follow-ups, but it is phenomenal at one-shotting stuff, like things it should not be able to, like vague prompts about going to make a game for you. Speed is nicer too. The 1 million context window is great for larger projects. It's not too token hungry, and it's pretty surprisingly good at writing. It's nowhere near as good at following instructions as GPT 5.1. It's so willing to just like ignore you telling it to use bun and go use NPM instead. It goes off trail a little bit more. And this is really shown in some of the hallucination numbers that we've seen. Artificial Analysis just put out a new omniscience index. This is their new intelligence test that's more about their grasp on reality, how bad they hallucinate, stuff like that. And apparently Gemini 3's hallucination rate in the eval is 88%, which is the same as 2.5 Pro and Flash. Kind of crazy that it's getting this much smarter and better without addressing the hallucination problem compared to a model like GPT-5 or 5.1, which have made meaningful improvements in hallucination. We measure hallucination rates based on how often the model answers incorrectly when it should have refused, defined as the proportion of wrong answers out of all the non-correct answers. They found that there's little correlation between accuracy and hallucination rate. So the accuracy we see here with 5 Pro is one of the highest they've ever seen. Proportion of correctly answered questions out of all the questions, regardless of whether the model chose to answer. So it chose to answer most things, but 53% of the time it answered correctly. And since it answered correctly so often, its index, like the negative to positive, is really high, but it also has one of the highest hallucination rates. Interesting that GPT 5.1 non-reasoning is so high up here when the reasoning version is much lower. Also cool to see that Sonnet and Opus have made progress here because they had not before. I'd be curious what a 4.0 and 4.1 Sonnet run would look like on this because those models were very willing to hallucinate. AMP's update was one of my favorites so far. The team over at AMP is great with Thorsten and crew, and seeing them make this type of bold change, moving all the way over because they don't let you pick models. They really want to build the whole service around the model they think is best. And Gemini 3 Pro is now the new main model in AMP, powering the smart agent mode. In just a few days, the number of static messages it got in our Slack was higher than for any other model. Crazy, this is incredible. Guys, this is really good. I love it. It's a ton of fun. I didn't expect a model drop to affect how much I'm enjoying using AMP this much. Wow, it's very persistent. Gemini 3 checked off all the boxes that so far only Claude has checked. Smart, fast, follows instructions well, works hand in hand with the user if needed, and eager to use tools and uses them with high dexterity. The speed part in particular is really nice. Having a model that is fast again, that is as smart and capable of UI as GPT-5 is huge. I'm having a lot of fun with it. When I had it do a image gen studio, it made what I would argue is the best looking one by far. I did something that broke the images, but it actually generated images and put those in too, which I thought was really cool that it's capable of doing that type of thing, in particular when you use it with anti-gravity. But this looks great. Like legitimately one of the most tasteful implementations I've seen of my image gen studio benchmark. Believe me, if I could talk crap right now, I would, but this is great. One more thing before I forget on cost. They're still doing the split charge where it's $2 in and $12 out for a mil, as long as it's under 200K tokens of context. But if you're going above that, they meaningfully increase the price to $4 per million in and $18 per million out. It's kind of unintuitive, but if you use more tokens, they charge more per token. And that's like a hard line. So as soon as you go over by like one token, your price more than doubles, which is kind of crazy. But if it's smart and good and capable, it's worth it. And I saw some crazy demos of things people were doing with this model. In particular, this one from Logan, it seems kind of insane. Supposedly this was a one try, one shot, and it did a good job with it. But I have my skepticism. So I was impressed enough with this that I wanted to try it myself. So I asked AI Studio with a screenshot of it to generate a prompt I can use to get an agent to build a UI similar to this physics test. It did pretty good though. Please implement 4 different simulation variations in the grid to demonstrate capabilities. Standard square, high gravity triangle, 0G, fast. Yeah, it said to generate a whole bunch. So I threw this not just at Gemini 3 because I want to do a fair comparison with other models. I threw it at Composer, Sonnet, 5.1 Codex, and of course, Gemini 3 Pro. So let's go through how it did for all of these. So we'll start with Composer. This looks about right for a dumb fast model. Nothing is working. Nothing is bouncing. These are very slowly moving, which is funny. If I turn the gravity up a bunch, will they move faster? Nope. Yeah, you get the idea. Broken as hell. Next, we have Sonnet, which has this incredible ability to just put the balls outside of the container. And the rotation only rotates the fast spinning hexagon. The rest don't spin. Not that it's clear in the prompt that they should, but would be cool to see. Here's the GPT-5 implementation, 5.1 Codex to be specific. Looks really cool with the fancy glow. Things don't fit great. I'll command minus to help with that. The rotation does not seem to affect anything. It doesn't seem like any of these really affect anything. Yes, kind of an L for GPT-5. I expected better from it. But now we have the model everyone's here for. One of the best ones, for sure. Still doesn't spin the square. Does it handle that well? Yep, it actually handles the rasterization when you screw with the rotation really well. You can just like rev it. Whoa, that's cool. I think SimSpeed doesn't do anything. Yeah, it doesn't. But the rest all works pretty well. I'm impressed. Can't complain about this. Also, the UI looks great. I did also really want to try Gemini 3 through the CLI. And the entire time I've been filming, I have been letting it try. It has been stuck trying to define core components for 55 minutes and 21 seconds now. I have a feeling it's not going to succeed. I just told it to continue. Hopefully this time it will. It just kind of hung forever. And I've had these types of behaviors with the model. I've had a lot of weirdness with it. There's a funny one I had here where it didn't escape the localhost URL properly and just has this weird line break. Just this type of stuff happened a lot when I was using the model. It's got the Google vibe to it, and by vibe I mean it breaks randomly in stupid ways that most other models don't, other than obviously our best friend Grok. But yeah, it has that like smart kid with just brain dead way of solving certain problem that is not uncommon with Google models. It does seem like they've smoothed out a lot of the tool calling stuff, though. I'm not getting erroneous tool calls like I did with even 2.5 Pro back in the day. I still hold a grudge against Gemini for how bad the tool calling was initially with the 2.5 models, but it has meaningfully improved. A couple other things I tested. I did the AI SDK v5 bump, and it hung for a while. I think it just got stuck when it was waiting for the dry runs to complete, unlike the other models, which didn't take quite as long to do it. Composer 1 actually ended up solving this one, which was wild. I made changes to this repo over the last few days to help with this test. In particular, I actually used Gemini 3 in anti-gravity to make a dry run mode. It still does run the test against real models through OpenRouter, but it's only running it on Haiku and on Gemini Flash 2, so it should be really cheap to run, and I can let the model try running the tests, a small subset of them, see the errors, and then try again. And Composer did a great job when given the opportunity to work that way. I was genuinely impressed that it could handle it once I gave it that constraint. Sonnet bombed, 5.1 Codex bombed. I have not yet tried the Gemini 3 Pro build, though. I got someone at Cursor to promise me they're going to make this fix, but they haven't done it yet, so I'm going to yell about it in this video because I know they'll see it. Why the fuck do I not have a copy path button when I'm using the work trees stuff? Why do I have to use your terminal? The types of people who like work trees and the types of people who use the terminal in the editor are two different people that don't talk to each other. They live in different worlds. I don't want to use your goddamn editor's terminal. Let me use mine. So what I have to do is go here, PWD, copy the path by hand. There's no easy way to just add this to the fucking clipboard. So copy this by hand, hop in here, open up a new terminal. I'm trying to live without tmux for a little bit, and I'm already going mad. I'll be back on it soon, don't worry. Change to the directory. Bun install. It should have already installed because they have all the work tree stuff for that set up really good. Bun run, dry run. Fingers crossed. Not breaking so far. Let's open up this in Cursor so I can see the results when they come through. Looking good. Yeah, it even contained the tool calls properly. Most of the models would struggle to get that far with it. Does that mean we made it? This test that I've been doing for every major model drop where pretty much every model has failed, it one-shotted it. It took a while, but it one-shotted it. I didn't even need to pass it errors. It got them all itself once it had the dry run loop set up. I'm impressed. This test has sucked. Every model I've thrown this at has failed really hard, but now more of them are starting to get it. It's been cool to see. This is actually the most impressive Ben so far. I did not think it was going to do this well. I didn't test this before filming. You're seeing yeah, it did it. Good shit. Real progress is being made. Also, more reasons to give the models the ability to run the code and test results, because when you do, it does better. Crazy. Who would have thought? I haven't actually had a chance to run SWEBench against this model, but I did manage to run it against SWEBench, and it scored, I think, like an 88%, if I recall. I'll update all those benchmarks and all the public stuff when I'm done filming and getting my life together. It's been a very busy few days. Yeah, look at that. It worked perfectly on the latest version of AI SDK. Maybe I'll finally update the repo. Wouldn't that be cool? Matt Shumer wrote a review of Gemini 3, and I think he touches on a lot of points here that I want to emphasize, because I didn't necessarily read this before filming, and I'm seeing there's a lot of overlap in how we're thinking. He's a little more excited than I am, but yeah. He calls out that it's surprisingly good at writing. He had to go check that it wasn't plagiarizing from a real book because of the quality of the writing. Voice is coherent, pacing natural. The turns of phrase were genuinely surprising. More importantly, it didn't feel like the AI slop writing that we all know just a little too well. I've not seen it do a single M dash, which has been cool. Yeah, the speed just feels great. He talks a lot about that. If GPT 5.1 is a solid junior engineer, Gemini 3 is the senior engineer who says, got it, done. You better check that it's actually done. I keep reaching for it, not because it's perfect, but because when it's right, it's brilliantly, almost humanly right. But you do need to go check. As he said, you have to babysit it. The model will sometimes glance at a log, declare victory, and move on while your build is still throwing errors. It'll screenshot a UI, say, looks good, and miss that the site wasn't even running in the first place. You need to keep the terminal open, rerun checks, and explicitly tell it to verify its work. Custom instructions help. Keep reading the logs until you spin things up until you know it works. It's a good one to add. For developers who stay engaged, it's powerful. For those wanting a magic button, it'll frustrate. That said, these are likely temporary issues that'll be patched via prompt updates on Google's side over time. Oh boy, sir, do I have news, having worked with Google over these things over years now. This is the best it'll ever be for this specific model. But what it is right now is genuinely really good. I've been impressed overall. things have been good with this model, and I do intend to keep daily driving it for a while and let you guys know how I feel. It is a bit expensive. It is a little quirky in different editor experiences, and as we just saw with my Gemini CLI experience, sometimes it just breaks. Like, it's just stuck. I think it's because it's running the create Vite command. It doesn't know what to do. But yeah, when you give it the right pieces and you don't let it stop itself, it can do incredible things. But at the same time, I do find myself here a lot more than I do with other models. Obviously, GPT 5.1 has its quirks. You probably saw me cover those in detail. This model's a little more willing to lock itself in a box and then complain that it can't get out and just run in circles indefinitely, more than almost any model that I've used that I've also gotten the quality out of. It really does feel like that chart we saw from artificial analysis, where it hallucinates more, but is also smarter. It feels like it gets itself stuck more, but it also solves problems better than anything I've ever seen. It's strange, but it's both the best and the worst model I've ever used in various different ways and in various different runs. But hopefully we'll be able to get it to behave properly, and the result over time will be a really good experience with a very, very, very smart model. Google is king once again. They're a quirky king, but they're king nonetheless. And I'm curious how y'all feel about this new model. Am I overhyping? Am I pushing back too hard? Or am I roughly on pace here? Let me know how y'all feel. And until next time, peace, nerds.